And it's time for Inside Oakwood with Dr. Leslie Pollard. He is with us today on Thursday, Triumphant Thursday, to talk about how triumphant we've been for a virtual alumni weekend. He has special guests today, Jonathan Johnson, Media Production Specialist, and Audrey Johnson, General Manager of WJOU. Good morning to you.
Good
Dr.
morning,
Pollard.
Donna. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a beautiful morning here in the Tennessee Valley.
It's beautiful out there, nice and sunny, the way I like it, and crispy. It's a
Yeah,
crispy morning.
55-ish.
Yes.
So it's really, really nice. Really nice.
It's a nice. And you know, we're still on the high of alumni weekend.
We are.
I mean, we just can't
are.
come down. We just
We
talked
are.
about.
It's wonderful. I was watching it last evening. Late last evening, I was watching the We Shall Overcome piece.
Wow.
By
yes.
Jason and the
And you know that
Audrey.
was on the news yesterday.
Oh,
on the local news.
good,
It was
good,
featured.
good,
I think it was
good.
WAFF. They featured it, you know, and how we are just continuing to push our mission forward. And over the weekend, just telling the greatest story ever told.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. Many media outlets are very much interested in that. I received a call yesterday from an alumnus of Oakwood University who works for a very high-level national organization. She sent the clip to the organizing council of the online consortium.
Okay.
And this is a nationally recognized group. That they want to use it for the opening meeting.
What?
Yeah, they're going to have a virtual conference, and they want to use it as the opening selection. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
Wow.
amazing?
Look at God.
Once
Look
we
at
get
God.
our story out there, the story has power.
Right, because Oakwood University was like and is probably the first university or college or HBCU to do such a thing.
To
right?
do that in that way,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
certainly. Now there was quite a bit. I want to be fair to all of our friends. There are lots of people who've been doing virtual choral pieces and those kind of group ensembles and others online. But I think what makes this one unique is that our group, under its leadership, took a historic selection, and rather than dazzle us with the technology,
Right.
it actually contextualized the message of We Shall Overcome and used that same struggle motif,
Right.
I'm sorry, that's that theological language, but that same struggle notion and victory notion and applied it to the war against the coronavirus.
Wow.
I think that's where the uniqueness is.
Wow. Now,
Because there are
Dr.
lots of hymns out there in virtual,
Right.
lots of good things.
Right.
Lots of good things.
There's a lot of good things.
A lot of
out
good
there.
things out there.
But you know, I know you got a good word for us.
Oh, well, God is good.
We're
God
not
is
gonna
good all
skip
the time.
that. We are not gonna- come on now.
So very quickly, one of the things that strikes me is that in 1965, so I'm going to reach way back, I like movie history. I like music history, and I like movie history.
I do too.
Movie history, 1965, a $20 million, which was a phenomenal sum at the time, $20 million was set aside by one of the big studios, and I have the name here, but I guess the name is not really important. They produced a movie on the life of Jesus Christ called The Greatest Story Ever Told. The Greatest Story Ever Told. It was actually about the life of Jesus. You had a lot of very famous actors at the time, John Wayne and
Right.
Claude Rains and a whole bunch of other people. And they were all in it. And if you go back on, some of the websites today, you can see it. But the notion was that it's the greatest story ever told,
Yes.
and it's the story of the life of Jesus Christ. And part of what makes this powerful is that it uses the idea of story, because story is a universal form. And we here at Oakwood University, we believe in the story,
Yes.
which is the story of Jesus Christ in Scripture, and we can read that all through the New Testament. But because of his story, we have a story.
Yes.
And our story is a story that we constantly put up in front of the publics. It's the story of transformational education. It's the
Right.
story of dedicated people
Right.
who are the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in the modern era. We are his hands, we are his
Yes.
feet. That is our story. And that's the story that we saw across Alumni Week.
Yes, we did.
That's the story we saw
Hey,
across
I
Alumni
love
Week.
that, Doctor. I
Does
love
that make
how
sense?
you just pulled that together.
Well, I struggle. Thank you very much. But
Yes.
I think the stories that are being brought forward, and we have great storytellers who work for Oakwood University.
Exactly.
Sometimes they're unknown and they're unsung.
Yes.
But all of us can feel the impact of what they do. And that's what I wanted to celebrate this morning.
That's
and then ask them, how do you do what you do to help tell the story?
Right,
How does
right.
that look when you're doing that? How does it feel when you're in the laboratory working all of this out?
That's right. So one of those hands we're talking about that had his hands all in Alumni Weekend,
Yes.
Virtual Alumni Weekend, is none other than our other guest, Jonathan Johnson. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing over there? He's in the studio. Uh-oh. I don't think I'm hearing him.
I'm doing good.
There
there
we
he
go. There we go. Hey, Jonathan. So, tell us about the unique role you played in helping the university tell its story.
Well, I am the media production specialist for OUBN, and part of that job is producing and creating content for the university. So for this unique event, we had to just try to put something together that our alumni and our donors and all of our friends across the nation and even across the world would be able to participate in, enjoy, because Alumni Weekend is something that we look forward to every year. So part of my role was just to make sure that it was put out. So I was the you could say I was the producer and kind of director of it,
Right.
Technical director of it. But there's a lot of elements and a lot of other people behind the scenes making sure that everything worked together.
So were you the one that actually came up with the concept of how it was going to be delivered, or?
I can't take credit for that
Okay,
at all.
okay.
I was just a element in the process, but I would say along with our division, Sherry Wilson, Emil Parker, the alumni relations director, and Dr. Pollard, they all came together and decided they wanted to do this, push out this virtual alumni, and I was just a part of the play. You could say I'm an actor on stage, making sure that it pulled off right.
So your work started 3 weeks before Virtual Alumni Weekend.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what was going on through those 3 weeks and how you put that together.
Well, when all this quarantine and everything was going on and whole coronavirus was taking off, we immediately had meetings about how we're going to pull off Alumni Weekend. When we started throwing out options and we sat down. But then after we quarantined on campus together and said we're going to actually do this thing. So for me, my role, I saw it as a purpose and as a time that we needed to actually figure out how to push it out. So I love live productions. I live for it. So I kind of jumped at the role of just kind of pushing it out. So I kind of researched some things, looked at some different ways we could do it, and we came together and we pushed it out all together.
How was it? What was it like coordinating all these moving parts on this thing? I mean, I mean, when I sat down and really thought about it, I was like, okay, somebody had to call this person, somebody had to tell this person what to do and when to get it in. How was all that coordination done? That just amazes me.
Well, I think the phrase goes, teamwork makes the dream work. And
Yeah.
I think the team that we have at IMPR, Integrated Marketing and Public Relations, we all work together. We work in concert together, try to push each other, push each other in a positive direction. We had to use a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of technology to make this thing happen. A lot of personal calls, emails, back and forth, and each person played a vital role. I gotta give a shout out to Tammy Townsend, Ron Pride, Makisha Mullins, Amanda Pitt, Debbie Millette. All these people who I work with, we all had to work together to actually make this thing happen. Because if it didn't rely on just one person, because it really does take a team to make this thing happen.
Well, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, yes, and yes, and of course, ultimately though, excuse my
No
sinus.
problem.
Ultimately though, in all leadership situations, it always boils down to somebody taking responsibility to say,
Yes.
we're going to make sure that this gets delivered. And Jonathan stepped up to the plate and said, okay, I will be that person. I'll take responsibility for the good and for the bad. We learned a lot of things about these processes as we went through.
Yes.
There were a lot of phone calls and texts back and forth. But I just want to say that, as I've said to the team, I will push you, but I will also praise you.
Amen.
I want you to know that. I will push you
Amen.
and I will praise you.
Yes.
And they accepted the pushes wholeheartedly. And now I'm praising them for the work that they did It was quality. It was
Yes.
unprecedented. We've done Alumni Weekend 53 years. Who would have known that the 53rd Alumni Weekend would be one that would be virtually delivered, not just here, but around the world.
Right.
Around the world.
Around
We're
the
getting
world.
we're getting feedback from people from around the world.
Yes,
And
yes.
again, it's a part of the storytelling apparatus of a modern institution. You know, Donna, story is a universal form. You can go to any culture
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people tell stories. When we think about Oakwood University, I'm often reminded of the great stories that are embedded in the experiences of the piece of all of our alumni and all of our
Right.
students. Everyone has a wonderful story, a
That's
wonderful
right.
testimony,
Yes.
and they talk about how God has brought them here. And it's an amazing thing, and these are the people who unleash the stories for us. They unlock the stories
Yes.
and make them public.
And
for
made
us.
them available to everybody, the entire world, as you say. So, Jonathan, the one thing that I know a lot of people want to know about, because I want to know about, what went behind the virtual Aeolians choir and what's the other group? I don't know why I'm Chantilly and
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that. I mean, we do have a lot of different groups doing that, but I don't know why these seem a little more special, a little higher than the others. So what is it? What goes into that? And is it live? That's the I know the answer, but a lot of people are asking, was that live?
And
How
you
did
know,
they
of
do
course,
that
and for our
live?
listeners who are tuning in who haven't seen it,
Yes.
it is available on YouTube and Facebook right now.
Right.
I mean, so Google Aeolians, We Shall Overcome.
That's
right?
amazing.
There we are. Okay,
Tell
so
us about
John?
that real quickly.
So those videos, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of effort and a lot of time.
Yes.
Now the secret to it, no, it was not live.
Yeah.
But it was a video that a student actually for the university, for the Aeolians, put that together. A student at Oakwood University
Wow,
actually
wow.
put that together.
Wow.
And he did a phenomenal job. Got to shout out Kari Dixon. He did
Wow.
an amazing job on that. And so yeah, just putting, I know from experience of doing something on that type of level, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort and to pull something off like that. He did an amazing job with that. Also with the Chantilly and Change video, we got to shout out Chris McNish. He put that together for them. And yeah, it takes a lot of effort. So we want to give a lot of kudos and praise to them for what they did to add to our alumni services.
Wonderful. Well, listen, finally, before we let you go, can you just tell us what was your biggest inspiration or takeaway from your role in Virtual Alumni Weekend?
Well, one of my biggest takeaways is on Friday night when we showed the 1990 concert. I know for me and my family, we used to watch that VHS every Friday night back in the day. And so on Friday night, when I was pushing it out, my family was on a FaceTime call and I joined them. And it was kind of like we were all together again, watching that, like we were back in the day about 30 years ago, watching all those things, because we know that concert from front to back.
Right.
So it was a nostalgic moment, but also a very collective moment where our family came together as one during that time again, because we're all in separate places. I'm here in Alabama, have a brother and his family in Florida, have a sister that's in Connecticut, I have a family that's in New Jersey, my parents are in Maryland. So we're all in different places, but we all came together in that one moment. So that was special.
Wonderful. Well, listen, thank you so much for all that you have done.
Thank you, John.
Jonathan. It's
You're
just
welcome.
amazing. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk to Audrey Johnson, Dr. Pollard.
Yes,
She's going to be here. We're going to talk about radio and how radio has really played an instrumental role in helping push and advance the mission of the university forward. So we're going to be back with her right after this.
I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm tossed in this wide world alone. No hope have I for tomorrow. I'm trying to make heaven my own. Sometimes I'm so still, I'm driven on, yeah. I'm trying to make heaven my own.
There's a city, 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 there's a city,
And I wanna
there's a city, 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 there's
And we are back now with Dr. Leslie Pollard. We're here for Inside Oakwood with him and his special guest. Now we have Audrey Johnson, Dr. Pollard.
Yes. And I'm excited that Audrey's here today. Audrey's our general manager. She produces and directs our Inside Oakwood segments, of course, but all of this operation keeps it moving forward and keeps it prominent. And part of what brought Audrey to mind was a webinar that I was a part of.
Okay.
It was a 3 presidents panel on Monday, and we were talking about the impact of the coronavirus. So it's all out on YouTube, and you can look at it under Dynamic Campus, 3-panel president. So I was there, and Dr. Mary, and I've forgotten her last name, but she was the president of a Catholic university.
Okay.
So the question came from the audience: how do you all stay in touch with all of your workforce, your alumni, et cetera, et cetera? So I just happened in passing to say, we've got, a number of different outlets, the way we do it. We do employee town halls. All of us are using Zoom.
Right.
And I happened to mention, I said, and we have a radio studio.
Right.
We operate our own radio station, so we get to utilize our radio station to continue to stay in touch and to tell stories.
Right.
And she said, without a blink, she said, oh, and it was, tongue in cheek. She said, I am so jealous that you all have your own radio station.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought, this is an unusual thing that we have here. Many schools have radio stations.
Right.
But schools in our size category often don't. And we're honored and grateful to have one. That began in the early days as WOCG, WOCG to WJOY. Was that it? Was it?
What was
WJOU.
WJOU?
Yeah, actually WOAK. And then WOCG, and then now WJOU.
And Audrey, who is our current manager, started as a student intern in what, WAOK, Audrey?
No, you put me way back, Dr. Pollard.
Well, that's because you have a wisdom that outstrips your years.
Thank you.
How's that? You
I
have
was
a wisdom that outstrips your years.
WOCG. That was the time that I came in. Actually, just celebrated my 24th year in radio in January.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
So you've been telling you're responsible for health, Audrey. So you tell us about your unique role and how you see it.
Well, I've always been a storyteller. My mom tells me. I used to talk to my dolls and make my friends listen to me. And so to put it lightly, it's just been a part of what God has called me to do. And it's humbling that we get to do it in such a major platform. Dr. Victoria Joyner, one of my mentors, and she was with the station. She still is. She's done 30 years here, and it sounded like a sentence, but 30 years here with the station. And she had the vision and the wherewithal, the insight to make us a live stream station back in the early 2000s. And at that time, it wasn't really heard of. And so we are able to tell the story through our programming, through what we are doing currently, which is Inside Oakwood, through a global audience. And we hear that all the time. You know, we have listeners or people who are streaming in China and in places that you may not be able to hear about Jesus on a regular basis. So we're able to do that strictly, well, not just strictly, but through our programming, through reaching back to our alums. They help us tell the story through our message of praise, and through Jody Jones. She's still a part of the station. She was the program director that hired me. And she does American Tapestry. About 2 years ago, we decided that we weren't just going to tell our Black history story during the month of February, but we were going to tell it throughout every day. And so telling the stories of people of color and telling how far we've come and what we're contributing is something that it's a blessing that we're able to do it. So the university has a very, as Dr. Pollard says, a unique platform where we are not just on the analog. You can't just hear us in the car, but you can hear us through the live stream. And then now we've added 2 additional platforms. I was joking, I guess about a year and a half ago, and I said to Damien, we're multimedia now. Well, we are. And Damien Malone has been really the blessing to the station, where I cast the vision, he makes sure that it happens. And we simulcast through our online and our on air, but we also do it through Facebook, and we watch that audience grow so much during this quarantined time. And it was just being prepared for the opportunity. On YouTube. We started doing that about a year ago, and we're watching that grow as well. We use, in Radio Land, when you get your ratings, we're non-commercial, so we don't get official ratings. But when we get our information, you're looking to see how many people listen at 15 minutes at a time, like collective. It's called time spent listening. Well, now we're not just looking at that, but we're also looking at our viewership on Facebook. How are we growing that? How are we growing our YouTube channel? How are we growing every platform on Instagram and Twitter? How are we doing? So it's not just one vessel now that we're using as many platforms as we can at one time.
Now, you know, Audrey, and I'm going to pose this to Dr. Pollard first, because a lot of people argue that radio is dead.
Oh.
Do you feel that way, Dr. Pollard?
No, I don't at all. And those persons who say that haven't traveled.
Right.
Because if you go anywhere around the world, more people have radios than they have televisions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
They do.
You
and,
know,
and that's important, though. That's important because the fact that we went on, we did internet. We went World Wide Web, I guess.
WWW, that's what they used to call it.
Late 90s, late 90s.
Early 2000s,
The fact that we went in that direction gave us a worldwide audience. And I traveled to places abroad. I've been to 60 different countries in my short lifetime. And there's never been a place where I wasn't able, if I could access internet, then I could listen to WJOU.
Right.
So again,
and you've proven that. You call in on Thursdays, from all around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're thankful for that. Audrey, so radio isn't dead.
It's not dead. And, you know, I was looking at some information preparing for this today, and there aren't many Black-owned stations that are doing what we're doing. So that's even important.
Wow.
Most of the stations who are doing multimedia are ones like iHeartRadio, which is a huge industry, or Cumulus or media-based. But to be a small HBCU school and to be able to push out the content and curate what we do is nothing but thanks to God. It really is. And to an amazing team, and I have to say that because I don't take it lightly. Elder Kelly still comes and does our program, his program, Think It Over. He's been doing it for 41 years.
Wow.
Like, where can you find that? I have 3 people who volunteer who've been doing this now for 30 years, Kenny Anderson and Victoria Joyner and Ivy Starks. Like, those are not small feats. I talked to Don McFall, who's one of our general managers back in the 80s, who still contributes to the content of this station.
Yes, he does.
And I think that that's why we have come this far by faith. I don't think that this would still be happening if we didn't, and I lean heavily on those shoulders, you know. I know what I know, but I also believe that the history is what makes us great. And so we're grateful, Dr. Pollard, to just see where this is going to take us. I'd say to Damien, we just had a long conversation this week, and I said to him, I said, D, we can't get excited about the wins. We just have to stay in the fight. It's kind of like marathons. I used to do marathons. and don't do them anymore because my knees won't let me.
I'm out too.
Many of us.
Yes, but it's about marathons. If you get excited about the first mile, you're defeated. You have to make sure, and it's good to have stopping points where you get to rest and get your snacks and re-up, but you have to be focused on getting to that 13.1. And sometimes that 13.1 is a long way away. But if you just keep your eyes on where God is sending you and not where you are, then the reward is beautiful. And we get to be the hands and feet of Jesus right now in this time. Who would have thought? You know, who would have thought that we would be able to share joy and inspire and uplift, encourage a world that is hurting right now through the airways, through the streaming, through Facebook. We're just grateful that we get to do it on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And how are we going to keep up with this as we move forward in this new environment now? This is to both of you. What does our future look
like? May I stay with the marathon analogy?
Go right ahead.
I used to run marathons too. The very first marathon I ran was the LA Marathon. And there was a little lady there. I was in my 30s. She was like in her 60s. And I said to myself, there ain't nowhere in the world this little lady going to
Everybody has that experience. Anybody that's run, they have that experience.
So I shoot out the blocks, right? I shoot out the blocks. About mile 18, I don't know, I go into cramping and all the rest of that.
Wow.
By the time I finally limp across the line, there's that lady sitting there drinking orange juice and eating bananas, right? And here is the lesson.
You got to run your own race.
You got to run your
do.
own race.
You do.
Oakwood is not called to be TV1.
That's right.
We got to do our race, and that's
right.
what we're going to do, and let God bless what we put forward. That's what we got to do.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much. Any other final comments? Where are we going in the future?
You know what? I do a lot of, my phone tells me how much I'm on it, which I don't like all the time. But I like to know where we are and what others are doing. We're going to stay relevant. You know, I say it again. Damien is... I cast the vision, and he's the tech guy, and so he makes it happen for us, and I'm grateful that he does that. But whatever is out there, tell the story of Jesus, which is really my goal, to just bring people who would not come into a church to our little church here at WJOU, and make sure that we are always cutting edge, that we are always moving forward. I think that we're doing what God has called us to do.
Amen to that. And as we close, it's important for us to know that God has his hand on this station in a very special way, that we are not stopping, we're not finished. God has something else for us, and his future is greater than our past. So I'm excited about that, and I think the joy for me, Donna, is that it gives me this show gives me the opportunity to bring forward heroes, unsung and often to say, this is what Oakwood is all about. And I'm grateful for it. Thank you for this Inside Oakwood segment.
Thank you. This has been Inside Oakwood with Dr. Leslie Pollard and his guests, Audrey Johnson and Jonathan Johnson. We'll see you next week on Monday for another edition of Inside Oakwood.
WJOU Huntsville, 90.1 FM, a broadcast service of Oakwood University.